A United States B-21 Raider crossed into the Caribbean at night speed while Venezuelan air defense radars locked on and missile crews surged to full alert. At 2:47 a.m., deep inside a highly secured airbase in the central United States, the lights around the runway stay low. Engines are already warm. Systems are green. A stealth bomber is moments away from launch. This is not a training flight. This is a live mission. On the flight line sits the B-21 Raider, call sign Spectre 1. It is already fully fueled. Weapons are loaded internally. No external lights, no radio chatter. The aircraft is cleared to move. Thousands of miles away, Venezuela has its long-range air defense systems active. Radar crews are on alert. Missile units are standing by. Instead of lowering tensions, Venezuela has chosen to push its defenses forward, testing how far it can go without consequences. Inside the bomber, the crew hears the final clearance. Taxi speed is steady. Heading is set southeast. Distance to first refueling point is over 1,200 miles. There is no margin for error. Once airborne, this mission cannot be paused or recalled. This is where risk begins to climb. Every mile forward reduces reaction time. Every minute increases the chance that someone on the other side misreads a signal and presses the wrong button. This is not an accident. This is not confusion. This is pressure applied on purpose. And here is the problem. Venezuela believes its defenses can force the United States to hesitate. It has no idea what is already in motion. If you think this standoff will end quietly, press 1. If you think Venezuela is about to face something it did not expect, press 9 and subscribe to follow what happens next. This moment matters because this was not a warning flight. It was not a show of presence. A B-21 Raider entering the Caribbean at night changes the balance instantly. This aircraft is built for one purpose: to reach places others cannot, and to do it before defenses can react. Venezuela's decision to push its air defense systems into full alert was not random. That area covers key command nodes and missile coordination sites. Losing control there would not mean damage, it would mean silence. That is why the reaction was fast and aggressive. Radar crews stayed locked, missile teams stayed ready, no one stepped back. For planners in the United States, this zone is not just a map location. It is a pressure point. Airspace is tight, reaction times are short. A single misread signal can turn minutes into history. That is why stealth matters more than speed. Being unseen buys time. Time decides outcomes. Inside the bomber, this is not politics. It is procedure. Fuel checks, navigation updates, quiet voices. The crew knows that once the aircraft crosses forward, there is no safe exit until the mission is done. Every system has a backup. Every move is timed. Calm is not confidence. Calm is discipline. On the other side, Venezuelan crews are also human. They watch screens. They wait for a clear track that never fully forms. They know something is there, but they cannot grab it. That uncertainty is dangerous. It creates stress. Stress leads to mistakes. This is why the standoff matters. It is not about words. It is about control under pressure. If you believe Venezuela pushed too far by holding its defenses active, press 1. If you think the United States sent a clear message by sending the B-21, press 9 and subscribe to stay with this confrontation as it unfolds. The first response did not begin with a launch. It began with a screen. Minutes after the B-21 Raider moved deeper toward the Caribbean corridor, Venezuelan radar operators noticed something wrong. Not a solid target, not a clean track, just a weak return that appeared, faded, then came back, slightly shifted. The range showed over 200 miles. Altitude data stayed unstable. Inside the radar room, the tone changed. Voices dropped. One operator leaned closer to the display. Another adjusted filters. The contact refused to sharpen. It never locked. That was the problem. Across the system, alert status moved up. Missile crews were told to stay ready. Launch keys stayed covered, but hands were close. Procedures were followed step by step. No one wanted to be the first to guess wrong. At the same time, inside the bomber, the response was quiet and controlled. the crew saw the same signals from the opposite side. Passive warning receivers picked up radar sweeps searching harder than before. Still no lock, still no fire control tone. That meant the aircraft was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Speed held steady, just under 600 miles per hour. Altitude stayed constant. Heading did not change. Any sudden move could create a stronger return. The safest action was no action. This is where tension peaks for the first time. Not when missiles fly, but when no one knows if they should. Venezuelan crews knew something was inside their coverage. They just could not prove it. Without proof, firing would be blind. Blind fire risks everything. Seconds stretched, then minutes. A senior officer gave a short order. Maintain track attempt. Do not engage. Wait for confirmation. That decision mattered. It bought time. But it also revealed the limit of their system. Against something they could not clearly see, hesitation was the only option. For the United States aircraft, that hesitation was enough. The window stayed open. The mission continued forward, untouched. And the most dangerous phase was still ahead. No alarms sounded. No missiles left the rails. But the silence itself became a warning. Both sides now understood the same truth at the same time. One side was being hunted. The other was being tested. And neither could afford to blink first, because the next decision would not be reversible. As the minutes passed, the situation tightened on both sides. The B-21 Raider continued forward on the same heading, holding altitude and speed with no visible change. Inside the aircraft, the crew made only small adjustments. Fuel flow stayed stable. Engine temperature stayed normal. Nothing suggested urgency, but every system was watched closely. On the ground in Venezuela, pressure built fast. Radar screens filled with noise as operators increased power and widened search patterns. The weak contact kept drifting, never sharp enough to lock. Each sweep took longer. Each update arrived later. That delay mattered. Missile units were now fully manned. Launch crews stood in position. Safety protocols were reviewed again. The distance to the suspected track dropped under 150 miles. That range put decisions on a timer. In close situations like this, even a small course change can mean survival or failure. Then came the pause. No sound but equipment fans. No voices. Just waiting. This is where escalation becomes dangerous. Not because something happens, but because nothing does. Fatigue starts to show. Eyes stay open too long. Hands tense. Machines do not get tired. People do. Inside the bomber, the crew sensed the shift. Passive sensors showed radar effort increasing, but still no fire control lock. That meant the aircraft remained invisible enough. Stealth was holding, but only as long as discipline did. The next phase was approaching. Closer airspace, shorter reaction time. If either side misjudged the next few minutes, escalation would no longer be controlled. This was no longer a test of machines. It was a test of restraint. If you believe Venezuela should have backed down before reaching this point, press 1. If you think the United States was right to keep pushing forward, press 9 and subscribe to stay with this moment as it continues. Both sides now understood how thin the margin had become. One false return, one rushed order, one misunderstood signal. That was all it would take to turn silent tracking into open conflict. And at this distance, there would be no time to explain, only time to react. The turning point did not come from a missile launch. It came from confusion. On Venezuelan radar screens, the weak contact suddenly appeared stronger for a brief moment. Range looked shorter. The track seemed more stable. For a few seconds, operators believed they finally had something real. Voices rose. One officer called for confirmation. Another asked for launch readiness. But the picture did not hold. The return shifted again, slightly off angle, slightly off timing. Fire control systems tried to refine it and failed. The track broke into fragments, then merged back into noise. What looked like progress collapsed into uncertainty. This was the twist. The defenses believed they were closing in, but they were not. The signal they reacted to was distorted, stretched by distance, angle, and terrain. It pulled attention in the wrong direction. Radar power increased, but accuracy dropped. The harder they searched, the less reliable the picture became. Inside the B-21 Raider, nothing changed. That was the key detail. Speed stayed steady, altitude stayed flat. No sharp turns, no sudden climbs. The aircraft did not react because it did not need to. Discipline was the advantage. This is what modern stealth does. It does not disappear. It confuses, it delays, it forces the other side to doubt its own instruments. On the ground, Venezuelan crews felt the pressure. They knew something was there. They also knew they could not prove it. Launching without a clean lock risked wasting missiles or hitting nothing at all. Waiting risked losing the window completely. They did not know it yet, but this hesitation marked the moment control slipped away. Because once certainty is gone, decisions slow down. And in a confrontation measured in minutes, slowing down is the same as falling behind. The final phase began without drama. That was what made it dangerous. Inside the B-21 Raider, the crew watched the mission clock reach the planned window. This was the point of no return. Navigation was locked. Flight path was stable. The aircraft moved at just under 600 miles per hour, holding altitude in the dark sky with no sudden changes. On the ground, Venezuelan air defenses were running out of options. Radar operators pushed their systems harder, increasing power and widening search patterns. The screens filled with conflicting data. One return showed the aircraft higher. Another showed it drifting west. None of the signals stayed clear long enough to act on. Missile crews waited in silence. Launch rails remained cold. No firm order came down the chain. Then the bomber reached its release corridor. Inside the cockpit, there was no shouting, no countdown spoken aloud, just short confirmations between crew members. A single line of radio traffic. Then the internal bay doors opened briefly. Seconds passed, the doors closed again. From the outside, nothing appeared different. No flash, no sound, no visible sign that anything had changed. That moment was the peak of the confrontation. By the time Venezuelan command realized something irreversible had occurred, the window was already closing. The aircraft had begun its exit maneuver, shifting course and descending slightly. Radar activity increased behind it, frantic and disorganized, but still no clean lock formed. Still no intercept solution appeared. This is where escalation ends and outcome begins. Missiles that never launch cannot chase what they cannot see. Orders that arrive late do not change what has already happened. Control slipped away quietly, not through fire or explosions, but through timing. For crews on both sides, the realization came too late. One side had completed its action, the other was still waiting for certainty. In modern confrontations, certainty rarely arrives on time. And when it does, the moment to act has already passed. If you think Venezuela waited too long and lost control of the moment, press 1. If you believe the United States calculated this perfectly from the start, press 9 and subscribe to stay with what comes next. The aftermath unfolded quietly, but the impact was immediate. Within hours, Venezuelan command networks showed signs of disruption. Radar coverage became uneven. Air defense coordination slowed. Orders that once moved in seconds now took minutes. No public statement explained what happened, but activity told the story. Units shifted positions. Communications went dark, then returned in fragments. For the United States, the mission ended the way it was designed to end. No losses, no visible damage, no public display. The B-21 Raider returned without incident, leaving behind uncertainty instead of wreckage. That uncertainty was the point. This event did not change borders. It changed calculations. Venezuela learned that its most guarded zones could be reached without warning. That knowledge alone forces leaders to slow down, to second-guess decisions, to protect assets that were once considered safe. For crews on both sides, the lesson was personal. Technology matters, but timing matters more. Discipline beats reaction. Silence can be stronger than noise. In modern conflict, the side that controls tempo controls the outcome. Strategically, this moment fits a larger pattern. Power is no longer shown by what is seen, but by what cannot be stopped. Deterrence is not a speech, it is a capability proven once, then remembered. What comes next is the real question. After a threshold is crossed, it cannot be uncrossed. The region will adjust, defenses will change, responses will be planned, but the balance has already shifted. And the next encounter may not leave this much time to decide.